How could she do this to me? Break up. I loved her dearly. How to stop being so heartbroken? He told me he was done with her.
I never saw this coming. I thought we were so great together.
Have you ever felt so crushed? I will never go through this.
Yeah, I love her so much and she's with another dude. 1 week later. How come? Do you recognize yourself? Then this video is for you. 8 guidelines for healing coming next. So we went through why breakups happen, and now that we're in this boiling pot, we have to find a way to climb out of here, right? Understand this. Breakups are handled differently, dependent on your background and the base of your maturity, as well as the length of the relationship that ended. For some, it's sufficient with a couple of weeks to brush it off and go on with the life like nothing happened, and even start to date again. For others, it can take years, maybe even a lifetime, where they will never be able to forget and move on. Of course, that's a bit of an extreme, but I'm trying to make a point that you shouldn't search for a timeline. Checking out other people's experiences with specific cases on how prolonged this nightmare can be. That being said, yes, a breakup is an unpleasant experience, but if you're not a total wacko, you will be able to grow from this experience immensely and learn a thing or two about yourself, relationships, and life in general. As the part 1 depicted, many relationships end unexpectedly for the person who is being dumped. But if you have been in some relationships prior to this, then you might figure out some small clues. But other than that, you will sink into an initial shock phase, feeling shocked because of the happened, not believing that this is it, and losing the sense of standing on the ground. You almost lose the sense of gravity and you feel like you are floating, like you enter a limbo of nothingness. That's normal, especially if it's the first time. Now the best thing to do when you get the news initially is to shut up, just shut up, not say anything, and retreat into confines of your safe space, your home. If you have been watching other videos on this channel, you know what that means. You have to take a step back, process what just happened before acting. Not reacting instantly and risking to harm yourself even more. Your ego is hurting, and making fool out of yourself by blurting out the first things on your mind will only intensify that breakup anxiety. Now that you're laying on your bed, ready to fall through the earth, or at least had some breathing time, in all certainty you will try to deny the happening of the breakup and get the urge to patch things up. Don't. The wound is fresh. One thing about anxiety is not just after breakups. I mean generally being anxious. It comes and goes in cycles. You will feel an excruciating pain some days, intensive and unreal. And days pass by and you feel like you are cured and won't believe how easy and fast that was. When suddenly, Shazam! You are on your knees begging for the higher power, even if you are not a person of monotheistic faith, to make it stop. And that's the secret to becoming religious. On the serious note, let's get through some guidelines and help you out of this predicament. Whether you're accustomed to emotional eruptions or not, it's time to get to know thyself, your emotions. If you resist, it will persist. The majority of relationships are ended by guys being dumped. Ironically, men have the least amount of tools to tackle such tumultuous incident. Women are much more closer to their emotions and feeling out the sensory processes within. Being a man, you have to swallow your pride and let your emotions onto surface. They have to be felt and expressed in order to disappear. Scream, cry, laugh, mope, do whatever it takes to let those bad boys out. Unpleasant emotions can be stored in the body for a long time and they don't dissolve just by the snap of the fingers. If given time, they become a part of your physical appearance. Just look at many middle-aged old people and you can see a lot of resentment and anger stored in their bodies. The eyes, Chico.
The eyes, Chico.
They never lie. I can't emphasize this enough. Everything worthwhile takes time in life. You cannot rush this, and you have to allow your healing to take as much time as needed to go over this hurdle. Rushing and lying yourself about the condition and living in denial will only worsen the coping process. Eliminate the person from your physical and digital sphere. There's no point in keeping contact, which will only tickle your emotional triggers and prolong the suffering. If you feel distress having things of emotional nature, let laying around, like gifts of any sort. Get rid of them immediately. Don't be butthurt while doing this. It's not about hurting them back, rather helping yourself to go through this turbulence as effective as possible. Even if you decide to go back to your ex, which is rarely a good idea, you have to heal emotionally to make that decision from a rational headspace. Mastering the mind is mastering emotions, which essentially means intellectualizing emotions. You receive emotions, you send it to your brain and break down them into thoughts by interpreting in a rational manner. Blaming is an emotional phenomenon. You shouldn't blame yourself for the situation, as you did your best with the knowledge you had. It is what it is, and a rational approach would be to make conclusions and learn from the experience. It can be hard when the heart is aching, but remember, there's no lesson to be learned in easy. Being in this volatile state, the learning will get you a closure, not dwelling or reiterating on what was or what could have been, but whether the relationship was that rewarding towards its end. I have a hunch that you know the answer. Never blame the world for your emotions. Look always inside for answers. Make sure to take this opportunity to reimburse your relationships with other people, friends, and especially with your family members, to nurture them even closer. Hopefully they are epitome of unconditional love for you and can have your back going through this rough time. While it can be annoying and repetitive if abused, try to talk about the situations with your family and your friends. You are not necessarily looking for advice, rather to hear yourself, to talk and process your feelings. That is exactly how therapies are conducted. Self-healing happens a lot faster when you hear yourself talk and go through the archive of your emotions. It's important to not bother the near ones excessively, so be aware of that. People tend to give up their old ways when they jump into relationships and neglect their own habits for the sake of the partnership, which is wrong in many ways and on the contrary can be one of the biggest reasons for being dumped. It signals clinginess and low self-esteem. Regain your former self by doing stuff that you enjoyed before the heartbreak. Emotional turbulence can make it unbearable to think about something else and do things on your own, but you should make an effort to celebrate yourself and being a self-sufficient unit once again. And don't forget physical activities, especially running and weight training can be a good way to alleviate the pain. Healthy for body and healthy for soul. If you feel that the burden is too heavy some days, take long walks, preferably in the nature. Trees, birds, the sky, the sun, they work wonders for the mind. It will be hard as fuck to show up at social gatherings. And the important thing is to not torture yourself. If a friend is having a party and you're invited, then that's exactly where you should be. But be wary of your feelings, and if it becomes heavy as a rock mountain on your chest, be truthful to yourself and ditch the party. Heartbreaks makes a person bipolar. Emotions can shift so fast that prior not being in the mood can become, I'm glad I came. This is fun and relaxing. This is classic. Think about the countless numbers of artworks, artists, other creatives, and you will realize that most of their work was inspired by strong emotions, breakups or non-mutual affections. If you have or had a creative hobby, channel it. Coping will be easier and you will be doing something productive in the meantime. Bonus tip, this is a tricky one. You most probably won't feel for seeing other people, and that's the right mindset. But somewhere during the coping process, you will feel that you are doing much better, and that toughest part is behind you. Seeing others can help you to regain your mojo. Even though I want everyone watching this channel to be detached and feel good about themselves regardless of the circumstances. This can help you to get back on your feet, but only if you feel that you can manage it. The most important relationship in your life is towards yourself. Hussein out.